Do you ever feel like things are happening to you? Have you ever wanted to feel like you could direct your life a little bit more in order to bring into your life the things you really want? Then this Doodle to Doing is going to be a treat for you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Doodle to Doing. I'm your host, Karen Light, artist and creative coach at Our Doodle, where I support hard workers in sparking their creativity to enjoy the ride of getting better results. In life, it can seem like things just happen to you, which can sometimes make it difficult to know why we are working so hard. Who's to say why something terrible shows up or why a great opportunity is all of a sudden in front of us? But what if we switched our mindset on this a little bit? What if things are happening for us and not just to us? And what if you had more power than you thought to bring things into your life that you actually want? This is why I invited our guest, Esperanza Smith. Hello, Esperanza. She is an energy medicine practitioner and founder of PureEsperanza. I brought her just for this reason, to talk about this juicy topic. And we are going to talk about harnessing your creative energy, not only to create the life you want, but to find satisfying meaning in the things that happen to you that you didn't want. So hello again to Esperanza, and hello to the rest of you in the room. Hello, Doodlers. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah. So as always, we jump in with a little intention, right? And our intention is our spirit of a doodle. So I'm going to be pulling that up here for you all. By embracing the spirit of what doodling is all about. So everybody in the room, read through this for a second and yell out the one that's jumping out to you today.
Forget outcomes.
I heard both of those at the same time, which is weird for Zoom. I heard forget outcomes, feel the flow.
Lighten up.
Be colorful.
Yes. I'm going to say leave room for surprise. So you all, whatever one jumped out to you, take a second and write it down for yourself on your paper. This is going to be your intention for yourself during this workshop. Whenever you're feeling stuck or you just need a little burst of inspiration while we're doodling, it's good to remember this intention so you can let go and relax into the process. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into a warm-up doodle. So everybody's got their piece of paper ready and their pen. And all right, so you're going to do a very simple shape right now, which is a spiral. And I want you just to be in the middle of your paper, drawing the slowest spiral you've ever drawn in your entire life. The slowest one you've ever drawn. Keeping it nice and tight. And just getting into the feeling of moving your pen around and around and around. Remembering to breathe. Breathe into your spiral. Feel your breath in the spiral sync up. Continue the spiral, letting it just go wherever it wants to go. If it wants to stay a spiral, let it stay a spiral. If it wants to flow somewhere else, let it flow somewhere else. But stay very slow and intentional, bringing your breath into it. And as you start letting yourself flow, I want you to bring a little curiosity to the table. What led you to showing up today? What is one question you might want to explore with this topic? And as you have an idea of what that might be, go ahead and write your question out by your little doodle there. And if you don't have the question, you can just keep doodling for a few minutes until it shows up. It's also okay if you don't know what the question is and you do just a big old question mark. It's always okay not to know with a doodle. So I'm Karen. I am zooming in from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm really excited. I was guiding you guys, so I just have my simple spiral, but I'm just excited about this topic because I think I get really excited about creating the things that I want. And the idea of reframing the things that show up that I don't want is always something I'm looking at having more adventurous fun with, I guess. So I'm excited about this topic.
Hi, I'm Sharon LaFlamme, and I'm from Cape Coral, Florida right now. And I was attracted to come because I'm attracted to Esperanza's energy, and my life has been about healing, and it's been more about energy. And so my doodle said, the question, how does connection work? And then I wrote attraction, but I was just drawn, and that's what I've been following, the inspiration and where I'm drawn to, and it was drawn to be with all of you today.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Vanessa, and I'm currently in Denver, Colorado, but I live in Phoenix. So what kind of made me come? So I work with a lot of wellness modalities, and a lot of these modalities work, using food for energy creation. So they're more, it's more about utilizing the energy from foods. But in my, what I feel, a lot of people have questions about, and I have a question about, is how do we harness energy within ourselves and our environment so we don't necessarily just look to food or to, a specific modality. That there are a lot of different ways to do that. So for me, there's my whole spiral, and the question is, so how do I harness energy within myself to feel motivated and extremely productive? Because I do, have these sprouts of energy, depending on if I'm traveling, if I'm using up a lot of my energy, and then it comes and goes. But how do I stay steady?
Hi, my name's Laura, and I'm calling in from Cincinnati, Ohio. And really, the reason I'm here at this doodle shop is to try to get a hold of the doodling idea and how it can help me overall, not just with one topic of my life, but, when I'm questioning anything in my life, if I sit down and doodle, which I often do when I'm sitting around, but, how a doodle can help me realize what I'm actually going through and thinking inside rather than from what I see on the outside.
So I'm calling from Philadelphia, Old City, Philadelphia, which is the founding area of, this whole United States of America kind of thing. And it's a new energy for me. Yet I'm a native Chicagoan, and so I'm zooming in from lots of places. I can feel all these dimensions of me stretched out across the United States, different places I've lived, and being here with you all today. And what comes up for me is this. So I began with a spiral. Then when we broke into continuing it, I added the color and then came up with this little shape. And as that happened, the first thing that came to my mind was this femininity kind of that came. And what I mean by that is like a divine feminine principle. And it's been kind of the cloak around the work that I've been doing these days. And it reminds me of my little female cat, Ani Carmelita, who's with me today too. And just this exquisite little sort of delicacy and yet a strength too that's inside of there. And really what that tempering of those energies are and how we can use them effectively in our creation.
Okay, beautiful. I am pleased to introduce further Esperanza Smith. She has been aware and working with energy medicine her whole life. Esperanza received a vision at 18 years of age pertaining to a future holistic center, which has manifested as the nonprofit PureEsperanza NFP. After years of working in social services and then raising a family, she was led to become a holistic educator through Waldorf education. Esperanza came out of the closet, so to speak, with becoming an energy medicine practitioner at this time in her life, and it is a service she wishes to focus on, empowering individuals to be the creators of their life. During our interview today, we're going to be taking some pauses for some doodling. So keep that paper and those pens handy. Remember the spirit of a doodle and that you can always spiral if you get stuck. If you have questions, feel free to stick them in the chat and there'll be time to discuss them at the end. All right, so welcome again, Esperanza. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Oh, thanks so much, Karen, for having me here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So like right off the bat, one of the many hats you wear is this energy medicine practitioner.
Mhm.
And can you quickly describe what that is for people who might not be aware?
So I think there are lots of modalities, like Anessa mentioned earlier, and the primary modality that I'm working with, although I also have dabbled in many and use many, is in my practices of shamanic energy medicine. And so I use the South American medicine wheel, but there are some like memories of North American medicine wheel. And really what that is finding ways to help individuals access and be effective with being creators of their lives, and to really understand their journey, to be able to own it, meet it, create it, and ultimately create destiny. So I really feel that the way we show up with moment to moment, and of course that brings in so many other philosophies and spiritual paths and religions, and just the idea of being present is something that we are evolving into in our consciousness. And that's the work that I do in energy medicine, is really helping individuals come to wherever they are, whatever's meeting them in their life, and being able to work with that. And sometimes that's retrieving soul parts, sometimes that's going back and healing the origin of the wound, sometimes that's preparing the incoming, which is emerging and birthing, sometimes that's in the leaving, and that includes physically death rites and rituals around being able to really become the master of that journey, and what we see through the archetypes, through the inner vision and wisdoms that we all have access to.
Yeah, it's something that jumped out to me that you were just saying is this word meet kept coming up, and and being able to meet your life where it's at, being able to meet yourself or meet what's happening to you. What does that mean to you, to meet something?
Just being able to really be present with all that comes. You were mentioning earlier, and I know individuals here kind of have had that experience and kind of alluded to that as well, where it's great when we're creating this really awesome, beautiful stuff, and we can identify it and go, yeah, I created that, and you can see what manifested into that, and it's beautiful. And then the things that show up that don't feel so great, that are unpleasant, and the tendency is usually to kind of want to go no, or so much of our collective consciousness is still about the blame, or about the external, or about how we didn't have anything to do with that, it's something that happened to us, kind of thing. But when we start to turn that around and actually see what input we had in that, what reflections were there, what pieces of us existed in that's out there, because nothing that's out there can exist really unless we have a part in it. It's not, we can't separate, we're all interconnected, and that's the way energy is, it's all interconnected. So being able to really be there with it is being able to meet it.
Yeah,
Right?
it really makes me think about like that it's brave work. Like it's brave work to show up. Just the meeting is brave. And so much can happen from the meeting, but it takes the courage to show up there.
And that's what, we're here for. I mean, everyone here, I think, is in that place, but, as an energy medicine practitioner, that's where we're at too, is to help be able to foster that, and to get our sea legs, so to speak, on the ground, so we're moving through all these different dimensions, and it is kind of almost watery and airy, and all those dimensions of us, and even fiery, and how to be able to walk through these different places and still feel our groundedness, and still be able to embrace all of that in its fullness, and in the range, the scope of who we really are. It's our power.
Okay, on that note, it's our power. Love that. Everybody here, I want you to doodle for about a minute, and just whatever jumped out to you about what we just talked about, that you want to remember, that you want to take away from this, just do a little doodle around that for 1 minute. something that I always think helps to illustrate is stories, and connects us and illustrates what we're talking about. And, I know that there can be this misconception a lot that if you were a guide of something, you have it all figured out, right? Like if you're the teacher, you know all the answers. If you're a coach, you know exactly, and you don't struggle. So Esperanza, do you have a story you could share with us about a struggle or ways that you sort of practice what you help other people with?
Sure. So I want to preface this by saying that, we all have different teachers along the way, and that's exactly the perception that we have. And hearing one of my mentors once tell me, like, there is no ultimate reaching a point, that we continue on this continual learning. And I knew it, but I, in my mind, I'm like, well, if like ascension or enlightenment or whatever is the ultimate point, then that's what I'm going to reach in this lifetime,
Right.
and not understanding like it just goes deeper and deeper, and it really is like this spiral, this infinite place. So getting to different places in our lives, we can track our progress, and see, what we've transformed and what we healed, all those kinds of things. And my husband and I started getting pretty good at manifesting, so we were like rolling along and we were manifesting stuff, and he creates this really cool opportunity, but it comes with like that courage you mentioned, Karen, to face something, and then him walking away from a situation and having to now like say, well, what do we do? Well, we know like in our minds we can do it, but like now we're here, and then all those practical and logistical things come up, like, wait, what did we do right now? It's like, wait, now we have like, where's our income coming from, all that kind of stuff. And then he manifests this beautiful position that he's dreamed about since he was like a young adult. And of course, there's like these layers of things we have to work through, because it's not necessarily right what I envisioned for myself right away, and moving further away from my children right then, and different things, but knowing like, listening inwardly and being like, where does this match on my journey? And it's always interesting in partnerships how that works. And so he manifests this presidency for this company that he's always dreamed about working with, and it's really beautiful, and it's like better than everything he could imagine, and it continues to be that way. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the way work should be. I've worked so hard this other way before, where like there was so much stress and everything, and now it's just flowing and flowing. But along the way, there were all those little pieces that we were having to work and sort of like align, not just individually, but then together jointly for this joint vision that we had too. And so right before these layers of these interviews and all these things, and the actual acceptance of the position, we get to a place where we're hitting like some core stuff, like stuff that, was from our past, things that we've dealt with before, but all of a sudden it's there. Triggers of fears, triggers of, worries or what ifs or whatever, different things that you're just like confronted with. And we're being real about it and saying, yeah, this is what we're going through. And then hitting some rough spots in between us and the kind of stuff that creates that tension and conflict, and that energy is moving in that way. Next day, movers arrive, and we begin this whole little journey with these movers that is like what you would see on a comedy, from the worst moving possibilities. We watched the other night where we actually watched an old, if you're familiar, if any of you out there are listening, Richard Pryor, old comedian, and he actually has a movie called Moving, and of course his is like worse than ours, but we could like identify pieces in that comedy and being like, that was us, that was our movers, that was, and there was so much different layers of fear involved with that, like the releasing and letting go of our stuff, not knowing if it was coming, people that were, kind of not really communicating and alluding to the possibilities that we might not get our stuff intact or whatever the deal is, delays, things that we were supposed to arrive here, but now our stuff is going back across country and being stored back in Chicago after it already was out on the East Coast, and more days coming and being left with like our mattress and our cats, and that's it, and going through those faces of ourselves, like, my husband's like, I couldn't believe it. You're like a really calm person the majority of the time. And on the phone call with these individuals, and like this bear ferociously coming out of me and being like, you never get my stuff here, kind of, and this protectiveness and this fierceness and this also ugliness and like feeling, you know, which was my own inner disturbance when this happened. Of course, it doesn't feel good to feel angry and, you know, like you're going to fight kind of thing, you know, and all these chemicals that are releasing into my body, you know, and then having to sit with that and being like, what have I mastered? Where did that come from? What was that all about? You know, why did I feel like my power was taken away from me? And how did I get here? And both my husband and I were asking this question, and we already had gotten to the point where we weren't looking at each other kind of in this way, but we were now like unified and going like, how do we create this? And the moment we said that and accepted, like, what energy did we lend to have this come about, and what is it showing us now? And then what was revealed to us was necessary, and those pieces of having to face those things were necessary, of course, sort of unconsciously and unknown, but preparing us for what next comes. And what next comes was part of what we envisioned way before we began this journey. But of course, we had like skipped to like these other really cool, wonderful pieces, right? And reminding us, you got to do the work. All the time, you got to do the work. And remembering what you sign up for. And as much as we want to say sometimes, I didn't sign up for this, you did. And this is why you're here in these pieces, you know. And of course, we manifest it in a lot of different ways. And the more aware we become, the more fun and focus we can, you know, direct this energy and everything. But then these things come out of nowhere, it seems like. Well, that's because we're still also like integrating these unconscious pieces of ourselves. And that is really eternal, because it's not only our biology and our life, but the collective energies that we're working with too. And so many levels of how we absorb energy and then work with that energy, and what we're around and how we get influenced and all those things, and the importance of staying centered and grounded in ourselves. And that's the key piece, because it's so easy as humans, you know, in this experience to just kind of flit and float out there with all kinds of things. So I really believe that this time that we're all collectively living in, evolutionary wise, is about how to sustain what Anessa was saying, sustain the energy, be centered in that place, and then really be that observer that's like looking, willing to explore and play, like you're saying, Karen, and know what we attract, Sharon, and, you know, knowing, Laura, what you were saying, you know, about why is this going on? You know, all these different introspections that we can do, but in a way that gives more levity to it, you know. And I'll be the first one to tell you, in Virgo wise, Karen, I know you and I share this a little bit, like we can like, you know, so just to be able to flow with that in a way that is a little more natural to this process. And I love the way you presented, Karen, that's just in this playful way that does allow us to be more adventurous, that does allow us to kind of step back and just kind of go, oh, okay, this is just part of the journey. And if we don't continually label and judge and do all those things that we do to it, but kind of meet it at this more neutral place, so that we don't have to identify it as like, oh, awful, terrible, or oh, wonderful, good, and I just want to stay on this side, or I don't want this side, you know, or whatever it is, or that it's not right, you know, because there's something about our mind that says we don't accept it. We resist like this thing, you know, because we're saying somehow in our mind, this shouldn't be happening, you know, or why is this happening? This person shouldn't be acting this way, or whatever it is, you know. But if we're just like, it is, so it is, it just is, you know, and then we just come to it from a different place altogether, you know, and we just can get in the flow of it.
So let's practice doing that, y'all. I love so much about what Esperanza has just shared. And I want you to walk away from this with a little bit of insight or inspiration, feeling a little bit more creatively empowered around one situation in your life. So take a second to doodle something that's showing up right now that maybe you're not too fond of. It could be on different levels. Maybe it's really, really awful, or maybe it's just something that's an annoyance. Don't judge. Whatever comes up for you is totally fine. But take a minute to doodle something that's showing up that You're like, oh, I didn't think I wanted this, although you did, right? That's what Esperanza said. You asked for it, but you didn't consciously maybe ask for it. All right. So we talked about a lot of things in that one story that I could talk about for 10 years because they're so and so relatable, right? Everybody in this room probably is like, yes, I have a story of that. Oh my gosh, I felt myself become somebody I don't necessarily like in some of these situations. And how do we find more peace and acceptance to get to that place of neutrality, where we can meet something, not avoid it, but actually meet it there, or not fight it even, but meet it there. I think that's a different thing than fighting or avoiding. Esperanza, what ideas can you give us for sort of manifesting a more peaceful and accepting way of dealing with the difficult things that cross our paths and helping us to have that courage to show up and meet it there and look at what we were bringing to also create that, so that we can be more empowered in those situations?
Well, I think that, it's a really cool thing to talk about having courage and not to be scared of something, but how do we know what that is unless we feel it, unless we are having those experiences, right? So all those different things that come up for us, to really be able to embrace them, is key. This is how we begin to build the muscle of courage, and we just have to find the different ways that brings us into that stillness, to really be able to be in that presence. So I just think that it's important for each of us to find the stillness, to find the things to allow us to feel that strength in us. And it's if we can sort of remember as we're going through things, somewhere to have it playing somewhere in our background, to be retraining these kind of thoughts that we have access to this inner wisdom that guides us in these different situations, so that we can really begin to release, to let go of things that hold us. I wanted to share with you this. And for me, that's, fears. We all have different kinds of fears. We all meet at that place of what is it to be scared by something. What scares you, is not for someone else, or whatever it is, it's different. My husband and I joke, he could be in front leading all these people in the organization and how he does that, but yet it might make him fearful to show himself or how he feels when he gets on a dance floor and dances his movement. And me, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. It's just so natural. I'm not even thinking about what other people are thinking. I'm just moving and feeling the music and the energy, right? But something else, I'm alone, I feel alone, it's very scary, right? And these things that are playing in our own unique journey as far as what we are needing to heal. It's not the other person or how we see other people around us. That's why teachers are only effective to help somewhat guide, but you have to find that wisdom in your own self. And so anyone, and I know you know this, Karen, anyone who's an educator knows that we're just creating opportunities and facilitating opportunities kind of thing. And then the rest is just unfolding, and we get to be fortunate to be guides for that part. So just being able to really find the energy where we're directing it, of course, focusing on things that we want to create as opposed to things we don't want to create. And fears are usually all those things we don't want to create. You know? And yet, here it is, walking right along with us, right? So just how to be able to meet it, to be able to, you know, I always have that image of being like whatever you imagine, that loving parent, you know, that can come over you and take you in and be like, you know, it's okay. It's going to be okay. And if we can find people along the journey that can help us, like us here right now talking, sharing these pieces, you have loved ones around you, whomever they might be, whoever your family, your tribe, you know, whatever it is that can support us. And I really believe more than now we're merging into this new consciousness where people can be so-called strangers, you know, but of course we're all connected, and they show up in your life, and they're willing to hold you and say, it's going to be okay. I'm walking right here with you, you know, and we start to gain that momentum when we start to feel into that energy that we're all walking through this together, through all our different fears, through all our different trials, through all our tribulations. We're all walking through this together, but you know what? We're all coming through, and we're going to help each other to do that. Just like this is helping us to come through.
Yeah. Makes me think about, you know, you brought up teaching, and to me that's always such a strong metaphor in anything I'm doing, even when I'm teaching to myself, you know. You brought up the parent being the loving parent, and another archetype that I think is really helpful is the teacher. Like, can you bring that up in yourself and ask yourself, what's the opportunity here? Like, where's the growth here? And then looking at all the people that show up as teachers in their own way, right? Even the ones that you think, why are they in my life? Like, how they are great teachers for you is such a, I don't know, it's a powerful thing for me when I think of things in that way. What other, I know you have lots of little things that you like to do with people. What are some maybe practical things people could try in their own lives just to give some new ideas to bring what you're saying more concretely into their life?
So we all have different practices. I'll share with you one that I think is very helpful. And I just would also like to say, regardless of what practices we have, maybe to look a little bit more at what shows up in your life, not just the people, but the situations, you know, all of them. Everything's like messengers. You know, sometimes teaching is like, you know, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to get something to learn here, you know, but just to be more aware of the messages that come in all kinds of ways, and trust, allow it to actually speak to you. That did mean that to me, and affirm it to yourself. That is what it meant to me. So you know that going to share this with somebody else, they might not understand that, you know, but you do. And it came to you that way for a reason. So one of the things that
I just have to say, I love that, because that is something that I am always trying to convey with looking at meeting and doodling, right? It's like, it's not figuring out the right answer. It's whatever it means to you is what it's meant to mean to you right now. And if it means something to you tomorrow different, then that's what it's meant to mean to you tomorrow. Like, if it means something different to that person, that's because it's supposed to mean that to them. Like, this isn't a right thing. It's the message.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's always the part that fascinated me about the artist, and I know you are, is that you come from that thinking already. For many of us who are more analytical, myself included, I know that side of me, but it wants to gravitate to the other side, you know, and that is the one that's thinking it's the right, or this, you know, whatever it is, you know, kind of thing. So to come from that place that it is no right or wrong, that it is what it means to you in that moment, that's exactly it, and beautiful. One of the practices that I wanted to share with you is that, you know, we are still working physiologically with a brain and a consciousness that has existed for a very long time. And, you know, with that, we're working with certain aspects of the brain that are considered more of that reptilian type of brain and thinking that we have. And that shift right now that's happening for us, evolutionary speaking, is to open up that prefrontal cortex to be able to start to enter into spaces that scientifically we're just starting to broach now. What does that mean? What are the possibilities with these new functions? They've been there, but, you know, maybe not spoken about or researched about, or even being able to actually identify, you know, research wise, scientific wise, what that means. But we're starting to do that now. And part of the way we begin to shift those types of trained thoughts, those programs that have played in our mind, we've heard about it in these different mindsets, you know, all the different ways we've heard about it at this point in time. But one of the old and ancient traditions is to really be able to find practices or rituals. Many of our ancient ancestors knew of these different practices, and for modern man, so to speak, you know, we see it as, oh, that's primitive, or that's so simple, or whatever. But intuitively, the connection that these ancestors had with these ancient wisdoms, and, you know, more of that realm of spirit consciousness, you know, wholeness, whatever source, God, whatever word you want to give it, it was about being able to connect into this source and do this healing, which is our own self-transformation. So one of the practices is to light a candle. And if you have that ability to have a bonfire outside, you can do it in a big space. But you can do this, you know, even if you're an urban dweller or wherever you are, just with a candle, and to really get still. And I would suggest that the great time to do that is in the evening before you go to sleep. And the reason for that is because, you know, you're allowing yourself to kind of unwind and to process and digest, open yourself up for your experiences as you go into sleep time. And that's a whole other practice in itself. But in doing so, you can really just center yourself and allow that subconscious mind to be working while you go to sleep at night too. And then as you light this candle, you really just sit yourself still and concentrate on just breathing and taking in, even perhaps with your hand on your heart, one hand on your belly or womb, and to be able to do that resetting of your, it's called a decoupling, but to do that resetting of the heart space, and it's kind of our fight or flight response kind of thing, in settling into a 4-breath count, taking in 4 deep breaths, holding it for 4 counts, and then slowly releasing 4 counts, holding it again, and then for 4 counts, and then breathing in, inhaling again for 4 counts, and doing about 3 sets of those so you can center yourself and drop in. And once you drop in, to just allow the processes that are coming up for you to be able to be with the things that are causing fear or stress, things that, and this is a good way to do it. If you can't get there because you're like, well, I feel like everything's pretty cool right now, I'm not really feeling too much stress or anxiety or anything like that. Look around the situations that have been happening, things that might have caught your attention and made you feel disturbed. Maybe it was something in the news. There's plenty of those kinds of things out there. Something you saw when you were out on the street, you know, on your errands that day or whatever it is. And just look at those things. And as you have those flashes come up for you, identify what feeling you had. What was the disturbance about that thing that you felt? And if you're doing work because you're more aware of, let's say, something that was part of your life story and things that you hang on to and you want to let go of, whatever those might be, bring those up and start to actually address them in this more archetypal way. And what I mean by that is, like, we all have felt pain. We all have felt betrayal. We all have felt our doubt, self-doubt, trust, distrust in our own self. Usually the trust issues we have outside of ourselves are trust issues that really are our own inside of ourselves. Feelings of self-worth, not feeling worthy enough, whatever that might be, all those kinds of things, jealousy, hate, anger, all the things that you think, oh, I don't feel those things, or those aren't good things to feel, or all of them, let them be, like, recognize them in your space. Everything that exists in the world somehow also exists in us. And they may show up differently than the way you're seen in the world, but they're still part of that same energy. And so you blow that into a little hibachi stick or into a big fire log, if you want to toss that into a bonfire, and you just blow in all of that energy from those different types of feelings, those different types of images that come to your mind, hurts that you have felt, hurts that you're feeling now, hurts that you feel for others that have been around you, whatever they might be, whatever connections you have with those hurts, those things that have caused the pain, the suffering. Blow into it, things that you've had trouble letting go, things that keep riding you. Blow, and then place it into the fire. And as you place into the fire, place your intention, focus that you are letting this now be transformed through the fire element, and allow it to go. And my second thought on that, which is my own practices and what I encourage individuals to do, is to look at the fire, ask that fire element what it speaks to you, see what comes up there, and just let that be, because there's messages in that too. So there's messages every step of the way as you're doing these processes. And this is a little ritual that I think many different traditions have used with the assistance, the alliance of the fire element, and allowing that transformation to take place. One simple way that we begin to actually take that mythic experience of placing our thought, our energy, our feelings, our emotions into the fire, letting it burn, visually seeing it, taking in that experience, and all the while breathing this all in, and begin to reprogram from this ritual experience that speaks at the soul level. It's not the mind anymore. It's not just the emotion anymore, but now it's placing it into a mythic realm which speaks more at the level of the soul. And when we're talking about energy, we're talking about that descending order that works from spirit to soul, down to the thought, down to the emotion, down to the physical. And that's how the transformation happens on the deepest levels for true transformation, true release, true letting go, true healing.
What a beautiful ritual. I am definitely going to think about that and practice that. And actually, I want to use that as inspiration to go into our longer doodle right now. So I'm going to have everybody get comfortable for a second, get things out of your hands for a second, close your eyes, and let's go within. And we're going to imagine ourselves going through this ritual. So let's start with that breathing that Esperanza shared with us. And just on your own count, in your own way, I want you to go through one cycle of breathing in for 4, holding for 4, releasing for 4, holding for 4. And let yourself continue to breathe nice, long, deep breaths. Maybe make sure your hand is, like she said, on your heart and on your stomach. Feeling the connection between those two things. Feeling yourself breathe in to both hands. I want you to bring to mind that last doodle you did of something that's showing up in your life right now that isn't maybe what you wanted. You're not too fond of it. And let's meet ourselves there. Let's be the brave people to ask ourselves what energy we might have contributed to that situation. And what feelings am I having? Like, let's name them. Let's meet all those emotions. Let's meet all those thoughts. Let's meet all those hurts or disappointments or fears. Just for a minute. without needing it to be good or bad or anything other than what is. Now imagine that you have something like Esperanza shared with us to blow into. Maybe it's a little stick, maybe it's a big old log. And I want you to imagine blowing it all into it, really pushing it in there, just letting it go, releasing it from you into the stick. Speaks to me really of the power we have to direct more than we think we do sometimes. And just giving it up to something greater. Let's give it up to the fire energy now. Throw it on your fire, whatever kind of fire you imagine is fine, whether it's a candle, like she said, or a big raging bonfire. I want you to imagine throwing this thing on the fire. And now ask the fire, what do I need to know here? What will be helpful for me as I continue to create my life? What message did I need to see? And as a message starts appearing to you in the fire, I want you to slowly blink your eyes open and doodle about it for the next 3 minutes. Whatever you might start seeing in the fire, don't question it. It can be silly, it can be serious, it can feel like it's nothing related to anything. But as Esperanza said, we're going to assume that the meaning is meant for you today. The message is there for you today. Let's do a 3-minute doodle on that. We're going to look for meaning in our doodles. We're going to look for the messages that we can take with us to feel more empowered and to feel maybe even more inspired by the situation that at first felt not good. So the way you can share is you can simply hold up your doodle and talk about whatever came up for you, whatever you want to share. Or if you would like to, it's always fun to hold up your doodle and invite other people to see what they see first, because sometimes other people have ideas or insights that might inspire you as well when they're unencumbered by what they think it is. And just because somebody else sees something in your doodle doesn't mean it has to have meaning for you. It might just have meaning for them. But maybe it does, and you could take it if it does, or you could leave it at the door if it doesn't. That's always okay too.
Hi. Okay. So, for me, a lot of times we have these expectations around creativity and, be it a professional project, be it an artistic project, or, we're in the midst of moving, which I know Esperanza is, but also I am looking for a new home. So there's all this expectation of how things will work out. And so for me, as somebody who's very action oriented, I have a lot of Aries energy, fire energy in my chart. I'm always like doing, and I'm conceptualizing and performing, right? And then, that performance takes on its, course. You're on the go. But sometimes you don't see maybe the results that you're hoping for because you're, constantly looking for, how that energy that you bring into the world kind of shows up. So for me, I doodled this little doodle here. So you can, I guess you can conceptualize what it shows up as. But for me, you have the creator, which is me. Ooh, right here, right there. Okay.
We see you, yeah.
And then you have the solar plexus, which is the power of creativity. So that's always being stimulated, and there's so much that goes on in there. And you have a magic stick in one hand, and you have a paintbrush in another hand. So there's this potential to create. And there's a lot of creativity. But the page is blank, which is kind of more of, create for the sake of creation, whatever comes from the sacred space of, your solar plexus, because you really love it, as opposed to, the plans that you write on your to-do list, or that you have, and you're, thinking about all those expectations of, oh, well, I have to do this today, I have to do that, and why isn't that showing up, and why isn't this becoming the way it is? Just kind of do as you intuitively feel called to create and do. And then you have a window here with, where is it here? The world just kind of doing its own thing, playing, the background, all these characters. And you're kind of just, it wants to distract you in some way, but you're really focused. So the page is blank, your life is kind of, ahead of you, and you're there to just kind of go for what feels right. And not to have these, because you're creating and you're expecting, okay, every creation has to have certain outcome, which is not true. So, and you never know where that creation is going to take you, what tangent what's going to come up because of that, and where that's going to take you, and where that's going to head, and if that's going to turn to something different and take you in a different place and in a different direction in life. So kind of trusting the process more than kind of looking for the outcome. Yeah, so I think
that's beautiful. I love that. Can I say one thing it makes me think about when I look at it too?
Yeah, sure. Do you want to
the way the window is, how it's kind of over your shoulder a little bit. It makes me think about like, you're very focused on what you're making, but it also makes me think of like you have all these things and like experiences and people and places you've been and all that stuff that also guide the process, that are informing sort of the process as you go. Or it also made me think about having like a little window into your imagination and like what the possibilities of what could be created on that page. Those are two things that came up for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, Esperanza.
So one of the things that came up for me is, of course, how beautiful this creator is just there, so present. Really, it's your page, right? It's the presence. But immediately what struck me like deeper than that was the window and the people. And as you were talking, I was listening to, how it came about for you and the distractions and everything. And I did this thing that came to me, and it comes to me a lot when I'm on a really like busy highway with a lot of traffic in a traffic jam kind of thing, or in multitudes of people like in big cities. And it's that any one of those people that's out there can be the creator, and then they could take you and put you out there. And isn't everyone having their own little chunk of this magic, you know? And I always think like, what is that creation about? What is that one? You know, it's like, and it's always intrigued me. Like that's one of the ways I've gotten through traffic and stuff, because I've genuinely been like, what's going on in that car? What's happening over there? Like all these stories. And then I look across to like the city of Chicago or now the city of Philadelphia. And I'm like, all these people, all these, you know, and it's just like, it's fascinating. I've always loved all those twinkling lights. You know, I'm a sucker for lights, like lights at a patio in a restaurant, lights in a carnival, you know, like lights, you know, it's just Christmas tree lights, whatever holiday. And all these people are like those lights. And it just felt joyful to me. Right when I saw it, I felt like, I love that. I love that about this human experience.
Yeah.
So,
I love how you and Karen, you know, see that as more of a, you know, here, the window is like a doorway to inspiration. Whereas for me, it was, okay, it's there, like chaos. I have to stay within. Whereas it can be a balance, you know?
Yeah.
You can have that sense of center and then still interact with the world and be inspired by the world.
Yeah, I
So
saw
like
it as
that.
interchangeable.
It's true.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, you know, I'm not a grand doodler.
Yeah, everybody's a grand doodler.
But so many inspirations came listening to Esperanza. And the first was one of the first stories, and it brought up that victim, perpetrator, protector triangle that we all live in patriarchal society, right? I'm going to show up and protect. And it brings up our trauma triangle. And so my journey has been of late is the deep, deep wounds of trauma. And it's been my primitive, primal anger, terror, fear. So those are the things that showed up and have been for me. So this is like the jits of the soul crushing in my anatomy. Solar plexus squeeze, terror, gut wrenching, right? And this is this moving through the energy, and it starts to transmutation as it starts to flow and move and surrounding my entire aura. And then there's integration. That says integration. So the depth of the contraction and the tightness of the primal wound, and then as it starts to move and flow and transmute. And this is actually 2 doodles in one. I just used and that's where I was at with just.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Can we comment on it?
Certainly, I would love to hear what you have to say.
Esperanza, do you have anything? I can jump in as always.
Yeah.
Vanessa or
Yeah.
Mom?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Esperanza, no, first.
I felt myself diving into the center of what you were talking about in terms of that pain. I feel you, Sharon. I think in different ways, you know, we've shared trauma on deep, deep levels, terror, you know. But what I felt from that was the center of like a beautiful flower, like a hibiscus, and going down the pistil, like literally like what a hummingbird would do to go deep into and then bring it out, right? And so there was this beautiful like emergence of what was coming out from that center. And that primal part you talk about has that other side that's the primal raw, like the rawness of everything. But it's in that center where we really it's birth, it's everything, it's life. And so as it's coming out, and then it has this flow of transmuting and coming around you, that is so powerful. It's so enriched. So I just wanted to say that that's what I gathered from that center piece of this flower. And I know of your transformative work, and you are like that flower. So thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for having the courage to always share that healing and transformation you continually do and have done. Blessings.
So on a similar note, I just wanted to point out, for many people that have gone through trauma, and just kind of knowing, exploring my own modalities for healing, and kind of my family's looking into different modalities as well. In trauma work, there's a lot of nervous system dysregulation, right? So a lot of energy gets caught up in the nervous system. So it's really hard for the energy to flow. And so they may have a lot of restrictions in terms of health and all of that. So that actually reminded me a lot of a neuron, a neuron cell, and how the nervous system is the way we navigate the world. And it's so colorful and like ready to be charged and expressed in the world. So it's like a really healthy neuron. So I was thinking nervous system dysregulation, and then this, neuron like being charged and ready to really feel healthy and whole again. So for some reason, it just looked at, to me, it looked like a nervous system type of.
I see that neuron. Yes, I do.
Power. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you for that aspect, Anessa. It's beautiful perspective. It's in flower, neuron. I mean, isn't the world all this concentric stuff? That's quantum physics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
definitely saw a bloom too. As soon as I looked at it, I was like, oh, it's like these things that we think are so awful sometimes also become something that can be so beautiful. It's all wrapped up together. Like it's just, the depth of I don't know, the pain or the fear can also be the height of the beauty and the, positive experience of it. And it just feels like that in this piece, like that, all that wrapped up into one to me. And my cat did decide to join us. She was literally crawling up me. So she's joining us for the rest of this.
They are the most supreme of all beings.
I know. She's like, yeah, you all need me right now. So I'm just going to purr away with my good vibes.
Nice.
Thank you, Sharon. That was beautiful.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
I love.
For me,
yeah, go ahead, Anessa.
It's very cosmic kind of being present to the cosmic music, what comes from the cosmos, and being kind of letting it come and not putting barriers to kind of aligning to the cosmic music that's meant for you, kind of being that receptor. So it's somebody who wants to be a receptor of the divine without restrictions.
Yeah.
So lovely.
Laura, may I ask what's at the bottom? Are those letters or just
Here,
little? Yes.
those are little rocks. I
Rocks,
didn't make
okay.
them.
So it's interesting. Were you done, Anessa?
Yeah, I'm done.
Then what I was just going to share is that isolation, being on an island. There's connectivity, but then there's not. And the experience of resonation is there. So there's an awareness, there's music going on there, it can all be heard, but there's still a sense of separation. And then the sun is shining. So the sun is shining from the back and the warmth that can be felt. tree of life, growth, all those things are there. Even the water being around you. But then there's this place that still feels alone.
Mm.
Interesting. Yeah, you both pretty much hit it. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I was getting this feeling of just being present, like, because to me, like the rivers flowing and it did kind of feel like sound waves to me as well, Anessa, sort of coming out. So like feeling the flow of those things and contemplating it. I felt like this feeling of contemplation as you take in what's around you and that awareness of what's around you and being willing to just sit there and contemplate it and like be with it. Feels like a very, like we were talking about, like the whole being able to meet something somewhere, you know, and the desire just to be like, okay, this is where I'm at. I'm going to soak in what is around me, what is how I feel while this is going on around me, and really, really be with myself and all that shows up there.
Yeah, I mean, you've all explained what was coming out is, you know, it's a situation I have with my mom right now and taking care of her, and I get so frustrated and angry with it. And so I think what was coming out was that I need to find some place peaceful for myself to sit and let the sun warm my back, let the trickle of the water kind of get me in that zone, and then listen to what the universe is trying to tell me and let it come to me, go through me, and then see what comes out on the other side.
That's beautiful. I have to say too, the green that you picked can have a lot of symbolic meaning too. One of being the heart chakra. So all the heart that is, you know, all the feelings that are being felt are because the heart is really open and there's a lot to feel, you know, in the situation that I'm familiar with. So yeah, lots of conflicting feelings.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Laura, I just wanted to add to that, this is a time, especially when you just described that you're, you know, the service right now, what is showing up for you right now and how you're showing up for it in this world right now. That self-care of yourself is so necessary to be a caretaker. You really need to find the ways to, you know, care for you, or have others care for you, and be replenished in that way. And that practice I spoke to you about a little while ago, that ritual, is really helpful. But coupling that with everything that, and I know you probably have a whole, you know, cabinet full of remedies, you know, things that you can use. And so in times like this, it's like we pull out everything we got, you know, from nutrition to rest to sleep to, you know, breathing to whatever it is that makes you feel joy, even distractions. We do use distractions consciously, you know, you just pull them out and load yourself up. This is your resilience, you know, and this is what you've acquired to this point in your life, all these years that you've been graced to live. You bring it in and you use them to make it your power. This is like your own special concoction. This is what medicine women would do when they create their medicine pouches and put in all the little herbs and, you know, animal feathers and everything that they needed, roots and everything to create their power. And this is what you must do for yourself now.
Yes, thank you.
You're in an initiation right now in that mode. Blessings. Blessings on your mother as well.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. So mine all became an overlapping thing from what I did manage to doodle between leading. But let's see here. I think that's kind of cool how it overlaps. I got really excited about it. I was trying to keep it separate at first and I was like, oh no. Make it focus.
There you go.
Yeah.
Seems washed out. There it goes.
So for me, I do see, you know, you have all the kind of 3D things of the world up in, you know, the upper corner of the doodle. So it's creativity. How do I manifest money? How do I manifest a house and all of these things? But then the center point is this heart, the heart chakra, and these flames that the pink is also the color of the heart. So this energy that comes from the heart, how do you follow your heart, which is this kind of center point, but still manage to live in the 3D and take care of the aspects of the 3D. So in a way, it works perfectly. Those two doodles kind of come together. And you can see how the creativity is the major aspect and center point in the colors. And so that's what stood out for me.
Excuse me. Thank you. Just blowing some more out. Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you, Anessa.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw what Anessa saw too, as far as the colors of the green and the pink, and you know, the vibratory colors from sort of the energy of the physical aspects of the heart chakra, but also the soul aspects and the divine feminine inside of there too, with that pink, that rosy color, which I believe is like, you know, just a sacred thing that's been passed on to us, many of us as women, to be able to utilize. It's funny how it manifests in like the more traditional material realm of like pink and pink being the color, you know, but there's a really beautiful esoteric piece to all this. When you first showed it, the first thing I saw was the house, but it looked like a church when it first showed up. I saw it as almost a church, and then I saw that, and then I looked at it again, and I'm like, no, that's a house. And then I'm like, no, it's your home. And so it like went through these layers, and out there, it was reflecting out to this, I don't know, community, it almost looked like a building, like out there, the world, people, or a representation of that. And the money sign, I guess, also is a part of all of that, but it's like taking from this center, home, heart space out into this other more material aspect of your world, letting it move that way. And it's all being infused by this more esoteric, spiritual kind of flame and centering of your soul energy, you know, where you're coming from. Where's the spider, Karen? No, is it inside that spiral? Yeah.
I know, right?
Beautiful.
She often shows up. She's all behind me.
Lovely. Thank you for that share.
Yeah.
So my thoughts were similar to Esperanza's, although she explains it so much better than what I ever could. I'm not familiar with colors and chakras and all that kind of stuff, but what I saw was that, you know, you're in your own comfortable home in space, and you love it there, and you're wondering how you could share that out within your community, your love out in the community. I see all those little hearts in the windows, and you know, and your plans for doing that, and how much money is that really going to cost, and what does it involve, and how is it going to affect everything. All those swirls remind me of chaos, like all the little things you have to think about before you can really step out and do whatever this is that you want to do out in the world.
Oh my gosh. I love asking that question, because now I just want to go sit with my doodle for a while.
Karen, heart to heart, heart to heart, from your heart in your home out there to the heart. And then there's this bigger, like cosmic heart, you know, heart to heart.
Definitely. And I think it's beautiful because when I show it to you guys like that, it takes it out of this very small one little struggle thing, and it puts it, like you said, it puts it back into the mythic, right, where it's like, this is a life journey thing. It's showing up in this one little way in my life right now, but that has so much more meaning when you back up and be like, no, it's a part of this bigger thing that's way more juicy and exciting than this little annoyance, like wonderful. You guys, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna
Thank you.
wrap us up here. Esperanza, this was an inspiration. I just have adored working with you in this podcast, but have adored being your friend for many years now. So thank you so much for stepping into this space with me and helping us all to reframe how we think about what happens to us and bring a little bit more empowerment into that process. And I'm going to share all of her links in the show description so that you can connect with her about her work with PureEsperanza or around even her energy work. If you want to connect with her about that, both things, she would be so excited to talk to you about. And thank you here, you doodlers, for sharing your time and your energy and your doodles and your vulnerability for all of us who are watching. It's a blessing to hear your stories and connect with you on a deeper level. So thank you for coming. And thank you to all of you out there watching. Until next time, just keep creating.